It's just about lunchtime. I think we can make this a short session anyway. There's no point in moving on to reminding you what there is one can do about the grievances you carry around the AR list when you don't even know what this identification is. I don't know how you're going to see any of this stuff well identified with the self. I don't think you know what this identification is. That is a conclusion that I've arrived at perhaps I'm wrong, but that is the way it looks from here. I don't think you know what it is. Self-observation. Yeah, sort of got a little bit of a handle on it. I don't see a lot of activity on that subject, but you at least got a handle on it. That one you can kind of get the idea of, huh? Unfortunately, too much of it just turns, because you don't disidentify, it just turns into the same old introspection everybody always does, where one knot-eye whines about what a bunch of other knot-eyes are doing, huh? And that is not self-observation, you know. Self-observation is just seeing what the self is doing. It really, the minute you get into judgment, it has ended. You are now identified with one knot-eye that is making fun of some others. It's not observation anymore. It's just that same activity that they've been doing since pretty much you made the third decision, huh? One group of them talks about what idiots the rest of them are. Okay. A few years back, for some reason, we started using a new term for a very, very ancient idea. The term is disidentification. It's just a word. And I do think it was partly done because the word that had been used for thousands of years had become so destroyed by everybody's opinion of what it meant that it was shunned. But whatever word is used, you are going to have to do a little bit of work. It's not going to be immediately obvious what's being discussed. Do you get it? What the subject of that word is. We can use any word we like. We could call it flamboing if we wanted to, and just make up a whole new word for it, you see. But you got to find out what the subject of the word is. And it is not immediately obvious to someone who is locked in a trance state of being every thought and feeling and sensation that runs through the body. You got to work at it a little bit to get this idea. The word is not the thing, period. But I'm going to remind you of what the old word was, just because I think you've really missed the boat. The old word was to renounce the self. It was called renunciation, which is a very fancy word for I deny the thing. And that is an active effort. You get it? To deny something requires work. When we have these weird conversations that happen all the time around here, when Phil says something you don't like, you got to work at denying it, don't you? You don't just sit there and passively say, oh, he's an idiot, and that's that. Oh no, your mouth opens up and you start spouting the most interesting crap imaginable. You got to work at keeping that out, don't you? Denying it. You got to change the subject and obfuscate and do all sorts of things, don't you? That is not a passive effort. And that's what disidentification is. A thought comes along and you say, I deny that that is my thought. Now, I tried to get that across by saying you look at everything and say that is not me. It's not working. You're not getting it. You've got to actually do that. You don't necessarily have to say the words, although I suspect in the beginning you really do. You're so addicted to thought. I think that's the only way it's going to work in the beginning, is if you actually repeat those damn words in your head. That isn't me! But the real idea is I deny the self. I deny that I have ever been that it has a damn thing to do with me. I deny it and all that it owns. Personally, I own nothing. All things that it appears that I owned are owned by the self, not me. It has feelings, not me. It has thoughts, not me. I don't own those things. I may use them on occasion. It has clothes, not me. I'm more than happy to use its clothes. Partly because I think they're neat, and partly because you get so upset if I don't. If I'm going to upset you, it's going to be about something a little bit more important than whether I got clothes on or not. It don't seem worth the effort. I don't have a car. It does. I don't have a house. It does. It's more than welcome to own all that stuff. I don't care. It is useful, and I get to use all the stuff it owns, okay? I deny that that has anything to do with me. I deny the self. You ain't doing that. You just are not doing that. If anything, you've turned disidentification into, now I own this thing that I have to make the most important thing in my life because it's the source of all my difficulties, huh? I mean, I swear to God, that is the attitude. Oh, finally someone came along and told me the source of all my difficulties in life. And now you're busy owning that. You're not denying it, renouncing it, ceasing to claim it. All of these words that have been used to kind of make it clear what this activity is. I deny that that thought is mine. It belongs to the self. It is the self trying to con me into something one more time. It uses my own memories against me, my own experiences against me, and tries to con me into doing some weird, bizarre thing yet again. And I deny that that has anything to do with me. That's what it is, a state of denial. Now you guys are really good at denial. You really should be really good at this. Except, again, clearly, you don't want to apply that remarkable ability you have to deny all sorts of things against this, do you? So I think you kind of willfully misunderstood this one. I don't think it's as hard as you claim it is. The thing that makes it difficult is just remembering to do it. I certainly know that when you're in the deteriorated state that you folks are in at this point in time, it is easy to forget to do it, okay? But I don't think it's tough to get the idea. I think you just decided you didn't want to do it. That you preferred to have a problem and fix that problem. But you're not addressing, as far as I'm concerned, the real issue. Your big difficulty is that you won't get out of a hypnotic trance. And you want to go on and do the things that a clear objective awareness might be able to do without actually having a clear objective awareness. What you have is a trance where you believe every single lie that was ever told to you. And distort reality to fit that weird lying picture that you've got. I suspect your experience was similar to mine, and when you arrived here, you were greeted by a lot of people who told you that the purpose of living was to gain non-disturbance. That was certainly my experience everywhere I went. I asked people, what's going on here? That was kind of a big question for me when I was quite small. What's going on here? I'm a tad confused. I find all this stuff going on here a bit confusing. I need some help. What's going on here? And that's the answer I got over and over again. What's going on here is we're all trying to be happy. We're trying to get to this state of existence where we won't be bothered anymore. We won't be bugged. We'll have nice things all the time, and all the bad things will not be there. And we have a bunch of plans on how to get here. Let us tell you our plans. First off, you have to find the right person to share this activity with. It's very hard to do all by yourself. And then you have to make little ones that you can train to do it for you. Especially when you start to get old and decrepit, you need those young, healthy folks feeling dependent on you, so they'll take care of you, and you can still do it when you're infirm. And that's one plan. And then there's another plan. You can go and get a really good education with whatever it turns out that your skill or talent in life is. And you can sell it to others, and if you can get something that they really want, then they'll give you gobs and gobs of these little green pieces of paper, at least in this country. And then you can go around amassing all the things that protect you from the disturbance of life, and you can build a fortress to live in. And you can live behind those walls, and then that'll work. You see, we have all these plans. Now, are you telling me that didn't happen to you? That isn't the answer that you got when you asked, what's going on here? This is a tad confusing. Now, I know that the answers weren't as clearly about the idea of this master decision as what I just said, but that was the answer, wasn't it? Everywhere you go, you ask people what's going on here, and you get the answer. We are all trying to achieve our purpose of living, which is to be non-disturbed. Is that not true? And that's the trance that you live in. You live in that dream. know exactly how hard it is to question that. Because for some weird reason, I didn't buy it. I actually thought it sounded like the stupidest thing I'd ever heard. And I know that that is not what happens to most people. I had made the same decision my own self. I could see that I certainly was doing the same thing, and I still thought it was stupid. And I kept walking around saying to people, that's it? That's all that's going on here? Are you serious? That's it? Like, are you sure? Because that sounds like the dumbest thing I've ever heard if that's all there is. I could take that as part of it. But that's the whole show? I'm just supposed to spend 80 years busting my butt to see if someday I can get happy? That's all? Who cares? How can you folks honestly believe that this is a worthwhile pursuit for a human being? I couldn't get it. I know how hard it is to question that. You're basically treated like you're cuckoo. How can you not see this? It is the most obvious thing in the world. How can you not understand what we're saying? What is wrong with you? That this doesn't make sense to you. And that's the dream you live in. That this all makes sense, except of course, you can't actually do it, can you? And there has to be an explanation for that, doesn't there? Everyone knows this is what life is about. How could it be wrong? So there has to be a reason why nobody can do it. Or almost nobody anyway. We're convinced a few people actually succeed, aren't we? But most of us can't, so we got to have an explanation for it. And then you begin the endless litany of weird reasons why no one can actually achieve constant happiness. And by the time you're through explaining this, you live in the biggest illusion imaginable, because it started out with a lie that a human being can actually achieve non-disturbance. Like I say, I know nobody calls it that when you're normally talking to folks. The most typical word that I hear is happy. I want a constant, ongoing state of happiness all of the time. And then you look and say, what would that be exactly? What does that word mean? And it means, I'm constantly titillated. Everything that happens just titillates me. Every sense I have is just constantly titillated. How the hell am I going to do that? In this world, how am I going to do that? How am I going to keep these little senses always tingling and saying, this is just so neat. How am I going to do that? I've just set up this game where I have to strive and strive and strive and strive and struggle and struggle and struggle, and I'm not allowed to win. Any of you ever played Monopoly? Not the world's shortest game, is it? When I was a kid, I liked the game. But I got to the point where anybody suggests it's like, oh, please, I just don't want to sit for hours moving those stupid little things around anymore. I just don't want to do it. Just to find out who the hell's going to get the most amount of money, It's like, I'm bored with this. Now, how'd you like to play a game of Monopoly where every time you get to the point where you own all the hotels on the thing, they all vanish and you start over? Because that's the game you're playing, you dorks. I got to the point where I couldn't even sit through one more game just to find out who got the most hotels, okay? How would you like it if the game was like that? You finally get there, and you've got all the hotels, and you're sitting there gloating that no matter where anyone goes, they're going to have to pay you. And then poof! They're all gone. Because that's the way life really is, isn't it, with titillation. You get it for a brief little moment, maybe that moment is even a few hours. And then it goes away and you get to start all over again. Day in, day out. For a very long time, as it turns out. I can't even sit through a game of Monopoly, and I want to do that. Because unfortunately, I just found that while I enjoyed Monopoly, only for a while. And then, you know, it just got a little tedious sitting there moving that thing around to see if you could land on something, then buy this and see if you could get the, you know, it's just like, it just got tedious. I'm sure there are some people who can play it hour after hour after hour, and they won't understand what I'm saying unless they apply it to whatever gets tedious for them to achieve the end result, okay? But Monopoly did it for me. If you could have done all that in 30 minutes, I probably would have paid, but I've never seen a Monopoly game that took more or less than 30 minutes, have you? It's just, for some reason, a very long game. Looks easy, but it's a long game, isn't it? Well, that's what you believe, that makes sense. Let's spend the rest of life doing that. Like I say, I can see that as a part of life. I can see putting some effort into that. But the whole thing, and we haven't even gotten into all the explanations for why I keep losing. How come I never get Park Place? How come it's always somebody else that gets Park Place, you see? I think that's what it was called. I must have said it right because everybody got what I'm saying. But then we got to have all these explanations for why I'm not getting it, you see. And you now live in this weird distortion of reality where you believe the most peculiar things. You gotta get out of that. You can't do nothing there but just continue the same old stuff. You come here and you bring the world with you. I will remind you of the ideas that you have been indoctrinated with in order to achieve this state of non-disturbance, okay, which you have brought here into an environment where they are completely irrelevant, where you are actually asked to set them by the door and leave them outside. And now you're trying to pervert and mold this activity into a way to get what you've always been doing because you won't disidentify. You can't get out of this illusion. Does this make sense? So, the mechanism that people try to do that is they say that there are ideals. They actually exist. There is an ideal situation that if I could bring it about, then such and such would occur. And then I could actually have this state that I'm struggling to get to. All I have to do is destroy reality and turn it into the ideal. And then you can say, like many parents do to their kids, I'm doing this for your own good. I'm destroying you for your own good. Because I'm going to rebuild you into something better. Life is a constant game of improving things to get to that ideal. In other words, we have just flat out said life is a struggle. That's the way it is, that's the way it ought to be, that's the way we want it. We're going to struggle, 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 struggle until we get to this ideal place where I'm finally happy at least, 90% of the time. Maybe I can handle 10% unhappiness, but I sure can't handle the situation as it is where I get maybe 1% happiness. And that's life. Doesn't that just make you want to jump up and down for joy? 80 years of constant struggle to make everything into the perfect little utopia for you, where you're always happy. Fun, huh? Can you imagine an 80-year Monopoly game? I can't even take a 2-hour one anymore. I mean, the last time I was here, some folks tried to rope me into Monopoly, and I was just so glad when someone came along and got me out of it. I liked the people, and I hated to disappoint them. I really liked them, and I would have played the game just to give them that nice thing, okay? But God, I was glad when somebody got me out of it. And then I gotta sit around constantly checking to see, do we have any of these at work? To see if I'm getting close. Are my efforts working? There's constant checking, huh? You're gonna tell me that you don't do that? Constantly looking to see, did it work, did it work, did it work, did it work? Am I any closer? Am I getting any better? Are things improving? And every now and again you're so happy you see a sign of progress.
See if that works in here.
You're telling me that that's not going on? Oh goody, I'm getting close. And then of course something, yes, that works great. Then of course something comes along and disturbs the whole thing and shows that I haven't made any progress at all. Isn't that right? And I'm just so disappointed and hurt. I've got to find something to blame it on. Hey, there's the rules to the game. How you like them rules? This is what you want to do for your life, huh? And this is the distortion of reality that we walk in the door with, that we filter all these ideas through, and when we're asked to do something that would give us the hope, the chance, that we might be able to hear them, we just distort it into some bizarre activity. I don't even know what the heck folks do and call disidentification. Because you keep telling me you're doing it. I believe you're doing something. I'm not sure if what you're doing is looking at all the activity of the self and saying, I will not be that. I refuse. Because that's what a denial is, isn't it? I will not do this. I refuse. I deny that what was true 20 years ago has a damn thing to do with me today. I'm just not going to say that's me. It's a recording. And it distorts my perception of reality so that I believe that what happened 20 years ago is happening, as I love hearing people say, it's the same thing. No, it's not. It's only the same because you're stuck in a memory and you're distorting reality to fit. Because you're identified with that memory. I don't understand why you don't get that. And unfortunately, most of the memories that we get stuck in that way are not really a lot of fun, are they? Look, they're mistreating me the same way the last one did. How many times have you whined that one, David? Who wants to be stuck in that? Why would you not want to deny that? I don't get it. I don't want to do the same endless litany of unpleasant experiences over and over and over again. I thought you were supposed to be trying to get happy. This is the weirdest way of doing it I've ever seen. By repeating misery over and over and over again. But see, you got to do that. You got to identify the source of your unhappiness so you can do something about it. So you got to be watching all the time for what's preventing you from getting this thing, so you can do something about it. Okay? You got to get out of this. You just got to get out of this. It's a weird distortion of reality where one minor aspect of living has been made into the only part of the whole of life, you see. And then just the weirdest things are believed to support that lie. That one small part of life is the whole of life. One of the weirdest of them is that people owe you for mistreating you. The one we talked about earlier today, okay? Now, I don't know. Perhaps you'll be able to get me to agree that I mistreated you. You're going to have trouble convincing me I owe you for it. And I know that annoys folks. You know why? Because I did it from the inside, and I know what was going on, and just about every time somebody comes and says, you mistreated me, I look back at that moment and I say, okay, yeah, I can kind of see how you probably didn't like what was going on, but you know what? From my point of view, it was an honest error. I really was not out to get you in that moment. I remember it. And sometimes it never even occurred to me in my wildest dreams it was going to even upset you. Sometimes it's things that I thought I was actually doing that were kind of neat. And it turns out you don't like them. You're going to have a lot of trouble convincing me that I owe you now. I know why I did it. I know what was going on. And I had no intention of mistreating you at the time. In business, that makes sense because we've made a rule up, you see, that says, I will do this in exchange for money. And so, yeah, you kind of owe me the money. I held up my end of the bargain. If you don't want to pay me, then it means we can't play this game because you won't play by the rules, and so I don't want to play with you anymore. I will continue to play the game because it works in general, you see. What's that got to do with life? Did you make that agreement with every person you met? Because you do it in business. You sign contracts that specify what you're going to do and what they're going to give you in return if you're smart. Now, I know not everybody does that. They treat it like regular life and don't bother to get that. But if you're good at the game, you do that. You spell it all out. Are you telling me that you've done that with all these people that owe you? You spelled out what they had to do and what the penalties would be if they didn't, and what you don't give me that crap. You just think this is the way it is in the weird dream you live in, huh? And I'll tell you one thing, from this point of view, you're wrong. And while I may agree with you that what I did wasn't the best thing in the world, I ain't agreeing to that oh yeah part. I'm not doing it. And I know it's going to tick you off. And I got a whole lot of ways of dealing with it without groveling. I got a whole lot of ways of dealing with that particular situation because it comes up a lot. Look what you did to me, now you owe me, you better get down on your knees and beg my forgiveness. Well, keep dreaming, because that ain't going to happen. I ain't doing it. And if I do, and you knew me at all, you'd know it was just a big put on. And I don't mean the weird of it. Because the truth is, I'm never sorry for anything that I do. Period. I'm just not. I don't regret it. I certainly have some unpleasant feelings associated with the fact that it bothered you and hurt you. That was not the intention, and yeah, I get those funny little feelings that don't feel too good when I realize that's happened, okay? But I don't regret it, and I'm not sorry I did it. It was what made sense to me at the time, and I remember it making sense to me, and okay, it turns out I'm wrong. I'd like to learn from that. Not sit and whine about what a piece of crap I am. I don't regret it. I may well learn something out of it. I don't know what else I can do. You need, I've said this over and over and over again, you need the foundation of disidentification for anything else to make sense. It begins that process of you gaining a little bit of objectivity and waking up out of this dream that you're in where you can't even tell what's going on. I know you believe you know what's going on, and I'm telling you're wrong. I'm sorry you don't see that. You're wrong. And you can't do anything in that weird trance that we talk about doing. You can do a lot of things, as you well know. But not the stuff we're talking about. It can't be done there. It can't be done in that dream. You need disidentification. I don't even believe that you can go through the AR while you're identified. How will you see them as illusions? Because the whole point is to forgive the debt. Write it off. Get it off the books so you don't have to carry it around anymore. It ain't going to be paid, folks. Isn't that clear by now? And with these particular things, the real honest truth is that there is not even a debt to be paid. They don't even owe you. You're wrong. That is just a weird illusion that you have it in your dream. How are you going to see that when you're identified with the self that tells you exactly why they owe you over and over and over again? So I can sort of see what happened here. You know, probably a few of you heard that idea of cleansing the heart and got all excited and then discovered that you simply could not do it. And instead of looking into that, you just forgot all about it because it was too unpleasant to deal with, that you just couldn't do it, huh? And of course, some, I'm sure, just didn't even get their attention at all, but I'm sure that some people set out with the best of intentions and then discovered for themselves that what I said is true. You cannot do it in a state of identification. It cannot be done. So you gave it up. I just don't think we can talk about anything else without making that clear. Disidentification is a renouncing of the self. It is a denial of the self. I deny that that is me. I deny that it belongs to me, that it is mine. I will no longer say I or me or my to it. Is that perfectly clear? It is an active effort. You cannot do it passively, to the best of this one's of knowledge. You must make that denial. If you do not want to deny it, then you don't want to do this work. And you're more than welcome to have that point of view. If that bothers you, the idea of denying your personality and self, fine, go away. Or stay and do whatever you like. It's okay. You don't have to do it. But you ain't doing the work. Because that's where it goes. It has been that way for thousands of years. That's what people talked about when they talked about renunciation. I can see why people stopped using the word, because people have done just the weirdest things in the name of renunciation, haven't they? Just horrible, bizarre, flagellative things. Beat the hell out of themselves and call it renunciation. I can see why people said, we got to forget about that word. It's just been too corrupted at this point. People will go around, using it as just yet another excuse to beat the hell out of themselves. And that's not what it means.
Is asceticism?
Huh?
Is asceticism the same thing?
Asceticism?
Ascetic?
Kind of, in a way. Yeah. And that's unfortunately what people think, you see, is that to renounce means you got to give up all of life's pleasures. You got to go around beating yourself all the time. You got to do all these weird things in order to be a renunciate. No. We're not saying you have to renounce those things. If you'd like to, you're more than welcome to. But that isn't the point. It's one particular thing that you're being asked to renounce, okay? The self. That's it. And this came up again today, so I didn't do a short one. I lied. I'll just do this real quick. Yes, I know that if you do that, the experience is often unpleasant. Duh. I have done it, you know. So informing me of that fact seems a little silly. I'm well aware of it. I know it's a little unpleasant. What is your point? Many things that I have done in life have been unpleasant, or they've gone through an unpleasant period. Dating, building a business, going to school, like doing the dishes. What the hell is your point? Except you're just using that as an excuse not to do it. You get it? Just about everything I do has a little bit of unpleasantness associated with it. It's just your weird belief that life won't be that way and it'll all be pleasant all the time in this idealistic world. You get it? It isn't that way in reality. Okay, it's a little unpleasant. Why don't you see what else there is to the experience? Is dating just unpleasant? Then why does anybody do it? Apparently there's a little bit more to it than that, but are you going to tell me there's no unpleasantness in it? You see my point? This is kind of goofy. Yeah, you're right. There is an element of unpleasantness in it. Apparently, because of this stupid master decision, you're just going to focus all on that one part of it. And God help you, if you treated sex that way, you wouldn't be doing it, would you? If all you did was focused on the unpleasant part, you wouldn't do it, would you? Because the unpleasant part can get pretty bad, huh? This doesn't make sense. Okay, I know it makes sense to you in this weird dream you're having. Please, see if you can find another approach than to just narrow in on that. See what happens. Okay? Any questions or comments? I hope I've made it perfectly, obviously clear. Whether anything will come of it, who knows? I know that you guys can deny anything you like and go back into the dream anytime you like, that making it clear doesn't do any good at all. Unless you want it to. But I hope that that has made very clear what disidentification is. If you're doing something else, I believe you've missed the mark. That is the mark. A denial that I am the self, that any of its possessions are mine. And interestingly enough, one of its most cherished possessions is feelings. It owns feelings, it has many, many feelings, and most of us cannot handle them, can we? And the truth is, we're stuck on not being able to handle self's feelings. I don't care. I don't own them. Some of them are quite unpleasant. Some of them are pleasant. Some of them are quite unpleasant. I don't care. They have nothing to do with me. They belong to that thing that made them, with its bizarre attitude towards life. They don't have a damn thing to do with me. I don't have that attitude. I don't have an attitude because I don't know what the hell's going on here. I've been in a trance for 50 years. What do I know? How can I have a point of view or attitude or feelings or anything else? I haven't even been here for 40-some years. Get the idea? Go eat.
What time do we reconvene?
Hour and a half or so. I didn't used to be so boring. I didn't used to be so boring. If there's anything, I'm spending a lot of time these days just saying the same crud over and over because I don't feel like I'm being listened to. If there's anything you want to talk about, just, you want to know about, just